I think one of the most interesting things that can happen to someone is when you realize that you're afraid of something, both just in the general sense of realizing you're afraid of something that you didn't realize you were afraid of, and afraid of it in a particular way that you didn't think that you would be afraid of it. So, today that I got thinking about that after my ride with the other person and all the stuff that they said to me in the car, which I'll talk about in a second, but I realized that the fear of becoming homelessness and all that, that the fear of the threat, the fear of the threat of it, the fear of the possibility of it, of that potential, more than anything, has been very limiting on me. It's been causing me hesitation. It's been causing me to kind of veer off track. It's been making me kind of second guess and use up time unnecessarily. Put in, essentially, to get distracted, I guess you could say. To veer my focus off course. And I realized today that it would be more liberating, and it was liberating once I realized that I felt the fear kind of disappear. And you know what? I'm not afraid of not having a home anymore. I'm not afraid of homelessness, of that possibility. I'm not afraid. I realize that when it comes down to it, I think I would rather be homeless and drifting through all the possibilities and things like that than to be manipulated and puppeteered by someone hanging the threat of becoming homeless over my head. And I realized that letting go of that fear really mentally helped to loose a lot of the other person's manipulation and attempts to be controlling. Just accepting that, yeah, that could happen. Yeah, that is a possibility. Yes, all these things are true, but, it's not really worth being afraid of. I'm doing what I can for now, and you know what? If it doesn't work out like that, if it doesn't work out that way, like I hoped, at least I went through and tried what I could, And something about that, something about letting that fear go, especially with someone who uses fear and anxiety and self-doubt and gaslighting and all kinds of tactics. Emotional manipulation, excuse me. Ooh. Yeah, it's not like a cat hair in my throat. Emotional manipulation to get what they want and try and dominate. Something about letting that fear go. Just, I felt a bit freer, which is, it is a good feeling. A little freer. And, excuse me. Yeah, there we go. But, yeah. I got thinking about it because the other person started saying all kinds of stuff, and I summarized it in a little note I wrote to myself. You have nobody in the entire... The other person started going on like that, almost like a script you can find off the internet, of just like the isolation tactics that narcissists will try to do, trying to isolate you from other people. But the other person literally just started saying, you have nobody in the entire world except for me. I'm the only one who will ever help you. You are all alone except for me. There's no one now or ever who will ever give you support, financially or otherwise. I'm all you have. You don't have anyone else, and you never will. I am the only human being on this planet, the only one who is ever going to bother doing that for you. You should thank God that despite the fact that you despise me, that I do everything for you. And that I just kept mulling over that and thinking about that while I was at work today. Yeah. It distracted me a little when I got to work at first, but after an hour or two, I kind of like set it aside, and, my work improved after that, but that just kind of kept going through my head, just thinking about that. And the other person said all kinds of other things. Sometimes they got to like ridiculous degrees. One of them was like, one of them was like, you should use your, you should get out there and work. Just never, don't stop. Just keep working. Use your, before you get too old and you can't work anymore. Something like that. And like, you don't have much time. You know that place you're living in is going to break down and it's going to fall apart before you ever get to accomplish anything. Or, yeah, and started making like vague threats and like insinuations that the place where I live is like, it's on a time limit and eventually it's just going to fall apart with me inside of it. And things like that, and basically just playing on this idea of isolation and homelessness and things like that. Just started going on this whole tangent about this stuff. It was almost cartoonishly antagonistic. But, so I wrote down a note here about what the other person said. So, for context, I live in an RV. Well, can you even really call... I live in a camper trailer. Yeah. That's where I currently reside. It's... If you see my Metroid Prime playthrough, there are plenty of instances to see it. It's a nice little thing. It's held up pretty well. But yeah, I live in a trailer. One of those camper trailers, you hitch it to the back, you take it to a place, you hook it up to electricity and sewage and things like that, and then it runs as long as it's plugged in. That's the kind of place where I live. I live in a little trailer like that, and the other person said to me, I don't know how long that camper is going to last, and started coming up with anxiety that the place I live in is going to fall apart or break down. Yeah. So that was, yeah, it just, I don't even know how to describe or explain that necessarily. But just playing on that fear, and even when the other person was talking about it, was just giving vague, like, no specific time frame, just that it will eventually, one day, And then started playing on the old thing of like, well, what if I died tomorrow? What if something horrible happened to me or to you? You know, kind of just started playing on the whole anxiety type stuff. It was interesting, especially because of all those dreams I had. I talked about in a previous journal dreams I had where, like, again, anxiety dreams of this place falling apart, coming apart literally at the seams or something like that. And then for the other person to again start using that as a weapon to say, like, well, one day it could fall apart on you. I don't know how long it's going to last. Talking about it as if it's like a cardboard box that's just gonna get blown over by a gust and collapse. You know, the stuff that she incurred a ton of debt in, getting really superfluous appliances and talking about it as if it was super strong, and then all of a sudden switches up talking about it like it could break down any second and fall to pieces. And of course, the remedy, the cure, the solution is to do the thing that the other person wants you to do. That is, it suddenly seems to fix the problem of it seemingly being a house made of cards that'll just topple over at any second, you know? It's that kind of thing. Yeah. And then the other person started telling me that I think I'm on vacation and that I need to stop thinking like I'm on vacation all the time and just, you know, work. That, like, you know, started saying things like, living in that place, you think you can just have fun and be on vacation all the time. And then started talking really condescendingly at me like a kid. Started trying to use video games to try and, but the analogy didn't actually make any sense if you thought about it for like more than a few seconds. Sorry if this is a little incoherent, a little disjointed. I'm just kind of going through it in my mind right now, trying to process and sort through it. The interaction. And then started trying to use like a really contradictory analogy with video games. Again, the other person seems to think that all I do all the time is just play video games. Even though my playthrough of Metroid Prime is the first time I've played video games in, well, years at this point. And even though I almost never, literally never played video games in front of the other person, even when they were living here, the other person is just, I guess, convinced that every thought I think or everything I do is related to video games, or that, like, yeah, started, you know how that kind of condescending talk when it's like when a mom and a daddy really love each other a lot, you know, like trying to explain how babies come into being. She's like, well, you know, in those video games, how there's the treasure chest and the rupees with and what Link, and started like really clumsily trying to form an analogy that kept falling apart on itself as the other person was trying to form it. and every few seconds the other person would stop, realize that nothing they were saying really made sense. I could tell that they were stopping, realizing that there wasn't actually any coherent thought, and then trying to form another thought, and it just continued on like that for like a solid minute as they tried to form this video game analogy, trying to use video games to baby explain to me a concept that didn't really exist, kept falling apart as they were talking about it. Which was it was something to see and hear. Uh, I just stayed quiet the whole time and just kind of looked out the car window. The other person will go on and on though. Like they're really just there to talk to themselves during pretty much any given situation, you could say. But yeah. So this really malformed analogy they were trying to go through. Yeah, talking to me like all I know is video games. It'd be like someone who's obsessed with Star Wars and you try to explain to them, well, if Obi-Wan was here and this was Anakin and the Republic, and it's like, I don't know why exactly you think that I just like think in video games, or I'm thinking about video games all the time, or I don't know. I think it's maybe it could be that kind of thing where it gives the other person an easy way to sort of hold on to something that allows them to look down on another person or something like that. I have no idea exactly why. I'm going to research that afterwards. Why that is, like what's going on there, because it's this fake false view of another person that you keep that like another person keeps reasserting as if it's true. It's like you listen to a piece of music. It's like let's say you listen to rock and roll once in front of a person, and now for some reason every week the person keeps bringing it up as if you keep listening to rock and roll all the time, or keeps bringing up that moment as if like you keep doing it, or you did it just yesterday, or and now it's the only way you can understand things, something like that. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm seriously gonna have to look into that after this is done. Yeah. Yeah, no. I barely ever played video games. Ever. And other person would keep bringing it up over and over. Like video game stuff, Well, in your video game, you're so good at video games, but you can't even do this, that kind of thing. And I'm like, I haven't played video games in years. I've been too busy. I've been working. And then even when I would tell the other person that, they would just go quiet and just kind of like, almost like roll their eyes but with their body gesture, and then like later just do it again. And then eventually they would like attack other things, like, you're so good at drawing but you can't even do this, that kind of thing. It was just like picking on different things, just like, well, these two tasks don't really relate. These are two different things. They're not exactly transferable skills. They're two different abilities. But also, I mean, ironically, when the other person would say those things, I hadn't drawn also in a really long time. So, I mean, if you listen to these journals, you know my progress on those kinds of things. Like, I only recently really got back into. I only recently refound, drawing and video games again, and I just played through Metroid Prime, but also it's like, the other person, you know what I do all day. You know that what you're saying right now is completely false, like absolutely untrue, but that's because the person's weaponizing it. They're using it for a specific reason, for a specific purpose. It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, yeah. Something that was funny to me. Well, basically, the bus program that I use to get to work is free right now. But in October, after 9 months, it's going to be, I think it's like $6 for every ride. And I was like, oof. But then I realized, oh, actually, I only take one ride every week from that program, which means only once a week I would have to pay $6 on a Friday to go to, take the ride, and then during the weekends, the other 2 work days. Oh, okay, that's not so bad. But the other person was like framing it as in October, you can't afford that. We don't have the money. You have no future. You have no financial future. You're not working hard enough. What are you going to do when you have to start paying for that? And all that, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly started going on like, you need to get out there and get this job that I want. Who cares if it only pays $10 an hour? And just work it. Just do it. And then, going through like a whole thing. And then I realized later, like, wait a minute. But then the other person was like, you have the bus program. Use all the other days. You're wasting it. And while I was showering, one of my shower thoughts, I kind of went through that in my mind, and I thought to myself, wait a minute. I'm already working so much and looking for opportunities so much that I don't have time to do my, like, learner's permit license study right now for driving. But even if I had it, I have nowhere near enough money to get a car now or next year, I have nowhere near enough to get a car. So no matter what, it's probably going to reach October, and I wouldn't have a vehicle, so I would still have to use the bus program. You're simultaneously... So now you're saying that you're complaining about and like doom and gloom about paying for the bus rides, while acknowledging that it's going to reach October to pay for the bus rides, but also saying use up all the other days for your bus rides. So you're simultaneously saying this is the worst thing ever, doom and gloom. You're going to have to pay for the rides. You're going to like go into debt, be poor and all that. But then also saying fill up the rest of your days with more of those bus rides, which consequently I would then have to pay $6 every day for, thereby creating the actual financial snag that you're trying to blow up the current situation into being. Because currently the way things are, you drive me to work 2 out of my work days, and only one day I end up having to use that bus. So it's actually pretty sustainable if I had to pay for it, that I would only have to pay for it once a week versus multiple days of the week. So this is actually sustainable for that in case I had to... Yeah. And then the other person was like, stop looking for remote work. Stop searching online. It's failed. You're never going to find it. And started, again, going through all that. It was like a whole thing. And then I was thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. Getting the remote work, which I currently have. I do currently have it, and it is helping a lot. But doing that remote work would prevent me from needing to use additional bus days. I mean, the other person clearly isn't going to help me out with finding more lucrative... Again, the other person's creating... It's a complete contradiction in and of itself. It doesn't add up at all. And actually, in a lot of cases, it creates the exact problem that they're trying to manipulate you into thinking the current situation is. Yeah. Saying that stop searching for remote work and work online. It's not going anywhere when it is. But that's because the other person wants me to get the thing that they want, which would actually be a really poor decision, because then it would $6 for, oh my gosh, 36, that okay, that would be, yeah. Anyway, sorry. I'm thinking about it even more now that I've like, yeah, no, that's a horrible situation. That would actually create a problem. But yeah, if I do remote work, I think the other person really just wants to get out of having to, of feeling like they are burdened with driving me to work. But actually, yeah, that's the sustainable option for when October comes. And getting getting a better remote job would end up being a boon, because then, again, not having to go out on those days, spending $6 each of those days, able to be here, simultaneously keeping an eye on the place and the cats. Current remote job, as I've said before, is not great. It's not stable, not particularly consistent. The job constantly changes, so I really could use... It's one of those things to, like, sit in for a minute. It's one of those, like, project-based, taking up tasking type things, but it's hardly stable. So as I've said, I've been job searching online for something to replace it. Anything that I could qualify for to do a remote job, replace that, and but yeah, I mean, that is the sustainable option when it comes to paying for rides, gas. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a good trajectory. But anyway, all of that was weighing down on me while I was at work today, and I was just feeling kind of crummy thinking about it, trying to sort through it while I was working. But you know what? I think that I was given something special today. I think God gave me a special gift today. It was interesting, and it had to do with a lot of food. So basically the way it broke down was, I ordered my food, but then they ended up getting my order wrong, surprisingly. That doesn't usually happen. And so my manager made another meal for me, and I got to-go box the first iteration that was the incorrect order. But the reiteration, the second attempt, only redid one of the ingredients, but I wanted to save the more full meal for when I got home, so I have that now in my fridge. But so the second one was only half of the thing. He went and, like, fixed up the thing they got wrong, and I had that for lunch, but I was like, ah, man, I'm only gonna have that for lunch. That's no good. And so, I went to go eat it, and I made it as full as I possibly could. But then, as it turned out, the manager also made apple cobbler. So I had finished eating the redone stuff, which was only half a meal. And then all of a sudden, they were like, hey, you want to come get this apple cobbler? And so I went to go, and then I went back there, and it was and they were just like, here, this is the last piece. And it was a big piece, but they were offering me it. And so I had it, and they were like, here, have like a scoop of ice cream on top of it. And so I had like really delicious, filling apple cobbler with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top of it. And it was super filling, and it like filled the other half of the meal that I was missing. So I ended up eating a whole meal while also having a full meal as a to-go. to take home with me. And then on top of that, there was a to-go order that got made and then nobody ever came for. It got canceled. And so I got to take that to go with me home as well. And I had it for dinner. That canceled order. And so now I have a meal for tomorrow sitting in the fridge. It was like a whole cascade effect of like, whoa, I just ate today. I just got fed today. How about that? That's what I was thinking to myself, like, oh my goodness. For the first time in a while, I ate really well. And that just kind of, that sat with me. Just thinking about that. I was surprised. That makes me happy. I feel like I was getting like a, it's okay, buddy. You're gonna be all right. That's what it felt like. It felt like a, like, don't you worry. Everything's gonna be okay kind of thing. I felt reassured. I felt more reassured. Just like, someone's looking out for me. I think God's looking out for me. But that was nice. It gave me a warm feeling. Just like, look at that. Look at that. Someone out there does care about me. I'm not alone, and I'm not alone with the other person. I am not alone with you. And the other person started saying all kinds of stuff like, financially, you're in the negative, and things like that. And again, trying to put more pressure. And then I thought to myself, and I wrote a note to myself, like, what's nice to know is that I'm not in negative financially. It's the other person's account. The other person is in the negative. The account only superficially has my name on it. So if it did go under, it goes back to the other person. But no matter what, thankfully, I'm just at 0. I'm just at 0. But, the other person likes to try to project their problems onto other people. Try and get other people to take the weight and the burden and the responsibility of it when it is just their doing for all of the debt and expenses that they've incurred. Yeah. Yeah. But besides that, there is, it's bittersweet. There's sweetness and there's bitterness, but you know what? The day has ended with sweetness, I would say. The day has ended with sweetness. And you know what? That poster request that I talked about yesterday, it does seem to be turning out. I got a lot of good info. I got sent a script that I'm going to read through. I'm going to read through it, use some of the vision that the person had for how it could look, read through it, come up with my part, put together a composition, and then go through the pricing metrics. And, this is technically going to be a commission. It's not a social media related or anything like that. It's just going to be between me and an old associate. But you know what? It looks like I'm going to get paid for some poster commission work. And, work out the pricing and go for it. But first I got to do a dramatic reading of this script. That's just for me, though. It's not for this channel. But yeah. And over the course of the week when I have time between remote work and doing all that, I'm going to, finish up music composition and upload some of the more fun video ideas that I had. But I think this is it for now. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. And I'm going to go ahead and drop the thumbnail and upload this.